that in the right manner. So we are to judge correctly. Someone else turn to, there we go. Turn to Luke 22, 29 through 30. If you have it, just read it.
My Father has given me the power to rule. I also give you authority to rule with me. You will eat and drink at my table in my kingdom. You will sit on thrones and judge the 12 tribes of Israel.
Okay, I think that was the last one. It's Luke 22, 29 and 30. Okay. All right, so it says, maybe I didn't hear him. And just as my Father has granted me a kingdom, I grant you that you may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom. There you go. And you will sit on thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel. So we are to be ready to be judges, right? We are to have the right knowledge, the right aspect to be able to judge those issues among us, not only among brethren, but even of the secular world. So instead of us going to these secular courts to be judged, they should be coming to us, right? And that is what he's saying here, especially within these brothers, if these disputes come about. And you can see how, like I said, if unity wasn't a thing, how it would be difficult to bring these disputes to someone else to judge it when you don't even trust the brother around you. You have these factions, you have these disputes among you, and that's the issue. So Paul says he moves them to shame. Moves them to shame. So the question asks, what in the context was calculated to move them to shame? So what is the reason for this shame? Go ahead.
Well, it ruins the reputation of the church, and it shows that the members are acting like the world, which we go to court. We get back money instead of deferring and letting it go.
Right. It's being in contrary to what they should be able to be, right? Now you're acting as if you are the same as those that are not of the faith. And even worse is that you're causing an issue because now those who are not in the faith are seeing that even among the faith, you still have the same problems as those outside the faith. You can't even do the same thing. So you have to come to me anyways. So that's the problem. So Paul is saying that that is an issue. You shouldn't have these problems within it. He said, in fact, it's better to be defrauded itself than to even go ahead and bring these issues among each other, especially to those who are not of the secular court. He said, you already moved to shame. You are already in shameful activities. You're doing this shamefully. So that is what we have of this particular lesson. Does anyone have anything else before we move into the Lord's Supper? Go ahead.
He's really, this is just part of the spiritual versus carnal discussion. He's just continued for these first several chapters to enumerate. There's not a middle ground behavior. You're either spiritual, you're acting like members of Christ, you're governed by the attitude of Christ, you're governed by, as Paul tells the Philippians in Philippians 2, thinking of each other better than self, putting each other's matters before your own. You're either that or you're carnal.
Right.
And in all of these things he's been enumerating, you're carnal. You're ashamed. You're to be ashamed, and you're to be castigated for abandoning being governed by Christ and by God's gift.
Exactly. Exactly. It all brings back to the fact that they're broken. They're not unified. They don't have these simple things regarding this immaturity, because they're falling back on the things that they learned in the world instead of learning the things that they've learned in the faith. around these group of Corinthians that have came together. They've allowed cracks in the foundation, and those cracks are causing them to pull apart that unity that they should have, and that's the whole purpose of this lesson. It's nothing about. Yeah.
And we also need to predicate that on what Ephesians 4 says. It's the unity of the Spirit, the bond of peace. It's not a unity of man's devising, but it's the unity of doing what the Spirit told us to do. So it's a particular universe of unity. It's the unity that comes from God.
Exactly, the oneness. So we're going to get into that in, I believe, later on in chapter 12. Chapter 12, we're going to get into that, the units of these things. Anyone else? All great things. Very good. So then we get into the Lord's Supper. And that's in beginning in chapter 11. This is very long, so I'm going to just start with the first 5 verses, and we're going to stop there, okay? And then we'll go over some of the questions. It says, "But in giving this instruction, I do not praise you because you come together not for the better, but for the worse. For in the first place, when you come together as a church, I hear that divisions exist among you, and in part I believe it. For there must also be factions among you, so that those who are approved may become evident among you. Therefore, when you meet together, it is not to eat the Lord's Supper, for in your eating one takes his own supper first, and one is hungry and another is drunk. What? Do you not have houses in which to eat and drink? Or you despise the church of God and shame those who have nothing? What shall I say to you? Shall I praise you in this? I will not praise you." So here we're getting to the Lord's Supper. The Lord's Supper for a Christian, for those who are to take it, is to have these things. We are to take it and be in one accord, in one communion with not only the brethren, but with the Lord. So you can see how they have, how Paul gets into how to take and how they were taken, how not to take. You see here? So we can see how this would be an issue. So they were taking it in division. They were taking it as a common meal. They were taking it not together, and they were taking it because they were hungry or already in drunkenness. We are not to take it that way, right? We are to be in unity, so we are to be in oneness. We are to be together. We are to be in holy communion with reverence, not because you're just hungry, and in reflection of what what you're actually taking. So you can see all these things regarding these things that were happening. So for them to meet together and to be taking the Lord's Supper, they're already taking it incorrectly. They're not taking it correctly and causing these problems that are happening with this strife. So it says, "For what evil must the Corinthians be blamed rather than praised?" Define it fully. Well, it's for coming together to take of the Lord's Supper, but to do it in a vain manner. They are doing it as a common meal, as a way to just eat because they're hungry, or to drink and then become more drunk, instead of doing it in the proper manner. And we can see that here. So what does Paul get into? So he gets into verse 23. So it says, "For I received from the Lord that which I also delivered to you, that the Lord Jesus, in the night in which he was betrayed, took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, 'This is my body, which is for you. Do this in remembrance of me.'" So right there, in reflection, right? In remembrance. in remembrance of me. For as often as you eat this bread and drink of this cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes. So that's still in the reflection. All of that is to be happening. It says, therefore, whoever eats the bread or drinks of the cup of the Lord and in an unworthy manner shall be guilty of the body and the blood of the Lord. But a man must examine himself, and doing so he is to eat of the bread and drink of the cup. For he who eats and drinks judgment to himself if he does not judge the body rightly. So this is when we get into this particular portion, which is the self-examination. We are to examine oneself. This might be harder to see for those that are in the back. Well, you are to examine oneself. You are to rightly judge the body. You are to rightly judge if you are capable, if you are in the right state, if you are in the proper mindset in order to take of the Lord's Supper. So if you don't do that, you are drinking unworthily. You must do so in the right way, because if not, you drinketh your damnation. So you drink unworthily, you drink damnation, you do not rightly judge, you are condemned. All of these happen because of those who were doing so in the wrong manner. And Paul gets into the fact that whenever doing so, you are found to be unrighteous. You are found to be separated because you're not rightly judging the magnitude of the thing that you are taking, which is the Lord's Supper. And that's a problem. That's a problem. So if you can see, if you already have a mindset of not being in unity, of not being in oneness, of not being all together, taking this particular thing, and you already have in the mindset that you're taking it for this common meal, you're already wrong in the fact that you're already done for, because you didn't examine oneself the right way. You didn't judge the body in the correct manner. You're already outside of the parameters to be able to take this. So, therefore, you should have taken it. You're having a problem. And Paul even going to elaborate where he's going to get into the fact that because they were taking it incorrectly, they're going to have things that are coming up regarding them. Pick up with verse 30. It says, for this reason many among you are weak and sick, and a number sleep. But if we judge ourselves rightly, we would not be judged. But when we are judged, we are disciplined by the Lord, so that we will not be condemned along with the world. So this is the problem. Those that judged unrighteously, who judged wrongly, became what? They became sick. They became weak. Many fell asleep. They died because they were not taking this thing correctly. They were not in the right mindset to take of the Lord's Supper, and they were doing so wrongly. So the Lord caused them these issues. Look at question 6. It says, why is it important for one to examine himself as he participates in the Lord's Supper? What serious issues are involved? This is those issues. These are those problems. Anyone's take on what they have for this? Go ahead.
Self-examination is a crucial heart check performed prior to taking the Lord's Supper to make sure the memorial is treated with reverence rather than as a common meal or empty ritual.
Right.
Paul warns that failure to do this leads to taking the Lord's Supper in an unworthy manner, making one guilty of sinning against the body and blood of the Lord.
Exactly. Seth, what you have?
Well, I was just thinking, was this the first time they'd ever been instructed to take the Lord's Supper? Obviously not. So
Mhm.
this it had to be, they had to be reminded, And what I like is that, he says it twice. Do it in remembrance of me. He said, do it in remembrance of me. He had to say it twice.
it gets back into what Brother Jeff said, that carnality that had crept in between them. We have to remember that these brethren were those that have come out of idolatry, right? And this is how they would have taken this thing in idolatry, right? If you were still in that mindset of being an idol worship, you would think of it as how they would worship as an idol, and they would take it because they want to be temporal, right? They're taking it to fulfill this lust or whatever it is that they have that they need to be fulfilled. But that's not what the Lord's Supper is about. The Lord's Supper is totally different than what it was for their idol worship, and they still have that mindset where they weren't able to bridge over from that mindset to what Paul had set before them and what the Lord had set before them, and taking it in the right manner. And that's the problem. They that common meal, because they're hungry, because they're wanting to get drunk, because they're one of those things, they didn't do so in the correct manner, and that already negates the thing that they're taking. It already negates the issue that they're or what they were supposed to be coming for. And even if some were taking it correctly and the others were not, if they're joining in, it kind of negates theirs as well. It can get into an issue of where they're not being in one accord. They're in division, because they should have told these brethren, especially if they saw that they were drunk, no, you don't need to take this, right? No, I know that you need to examine yourself. You need to examine yourself before you take it. So, if you're drunk, don't take this, right? But they didn't. So because of that, they were found unrighteous. They were found to have issues. So they had these serious issues that were involved, because those serious issues that came about was the sickness, right? The weakness, the death. This was happening within these brethren because they were not taking it correctly. So that is very much a problem. Go ahead. Oh, sorry.
And in context, we have to make it clear that sickness, weakness, and death there is talking about spiritual.
Right.
Sickness, weakness, and death.
Right.
It's not talking about physical.
Right. Because they're spiritually made to be separate from the Lord, because they're not taking it in communion with the Lord. That's the problem. Go ahead. I heard somebody else. Yeah, that spiritual death, that they're no longer a part of what the Lord has for them, and they're taking it because they're taking it wrong. Do we want to be separated from the Lord? No. We want to be in communion with the Lord. That's the whole purpose of this. Go ahead.
Something I always like to bring up, at least at the table when we're talking about it, is why are we taking it for unity? Yes, and it's communing, yes, but it's also to proclaim what Jesus did.
Exactly.
So we are literally showing, by showing what we're doing, that we still believe that Jesus died for us, and we're showing that through his instruction. Like, he instructed us to do that. It wasn't Paul's instruction. Jesus instructed, and now Paul just reiterating
Right.
it, because he wants them to understand, like, listen, you've gone so far that you're not even remembering what we're doing this for now.
Mm-hmm.
Doing this to proclaim the Lord's death.
Exactly. So this is a moment of magnitude that should be shared within the brethren, that should be shared regarding the Lord, but yet they were just making it common. They were making it as a normal meal that you would sit down with friends around the table. That tells you how far off they had come, and that's the problem here.
We also need to note there in verse 23, the quotations that Paul uses there from Jesus, he didn't receive it from the 10 apostles that were alive got that from Jesus.
Mhm.
Now, it matches what the apostles said because Jesus sent the Holy Spirit to bring them into all remembrance. So when Jesus told Paul what happened on that night, it's the same thing.
Right.
So we need to know that this is not just a quotation of the synoptic gospels. This is, Paul got it directly from Christ, what happened that night.
Exactly. Exactly what Seth was saying, how Jesus had instituted this, and therefore they're just following in that same manner regarding how they're taking upon the Lord's Supper. Exactly. Exactly. Very good.
You think they were perhaps doing it not on the first day of the week anymore either? And he had to tell them, hey, as often as you, right? So like even today, people aren't taking it on the first day of the week. We even have that issue now. And we have to let them know, hey, there's a reason Paul wrote these letters is to instruct them because they weren't taking it on the first day of the week perhaps.
Mm.
And he had to remind them of that.
Right.
You know, for as often as you use it.
Right. When you come together, right? Exactly. And that is an issue. They're not taking in the right manner. They're doing so outside of the parameters that were set in the Lord taking it. You know, and that's the issue. When you get upon this thing, and when you get upon this magnificent application of your faith, really, of your unity, and not only that, of showing how this was something that the Lord did for you, and you're coming in communion with that. So it's a special bond that they're having here, but unfortunately, they're not allowing that. They're falling away from the proper manner, the proper right way to do so. And like Seth said, there's so many who probably are doing that same thing today. They don't examine themselves. They don't see the magnitude. They're not in communion. They're taking it on the wrong day. They're taking it only once a month, maybe twice a month. That's an issue. And we need to be able to be set and grounded in what Paul and what the Lord has given to us, and the apostles have told us what we need to do and what we need to take and how we do it in that right manner. Because we don't, right, want the spiritual death. We don't want the spiritual sickness. We don't want to be considered wanton in the day because we're taking it wrongly. That's the issue. And I can see how when you take it on a weekly basis, how some can get in the mindset that it's just this mundane thing, but it's not. We are to remember. That's why when the men come up here and they talk and they have these spills, we want to listen to that and reflect and to be in that right heart and that right mindset to take it in the right manner. Because it's so important if we don't do it right. And one of those aspects of it is just the unity of the brethren and the unity with God. And that's what we want. And that all great things that everyone's come with. Very good. Very good. So what happened regarding this? Well, Paul is chastising them. What was the purpose? Paul's chastising them, but also the Lord is causing these chastisements. He is saying that they are condemning, and he doesn't want them to be condemned. He wants them to not be condemned like the world. He wants them to have the love that is going on. He wants to show him their love, so he's chastising them for this. And he's doing so as a father would with their children. So it says, it's Hebrews 12:6. It says, "For those whom the Lord loves, he disciplines, and he scourges every son whom he receives." So if you're not taking of the right manner, he's going to cause this chastisement. He's going to cause this issue. And that's the thing that these brethren are now going apart. They're now having these things to come up because, like Brother Bob said, they are now separated. they're getting spiritual death, spiritual sickness, spiritual, all these things because they're not taking of the right way. Anyone else have anything regarding that chastisement?
Yeah. And this is not necessarily direct chastisement from the Lord. The Lord has set in place how the church is to discipline the members. So for many things, and most things probably, and maybe all, the discipline is discipline that the congregation meets out in accordance with God's word. It's not a direct operation in this case, and we need to keep that in mind. So that's why church discipline is so important, because it's something that God required, and and when we do so, we're acting, if we're doing it correctly, then we're doing it as an agent for God. Because again, just as they were not disciplining the man who had his father's wife, they weren't disciplining these people who were partaking of the Lord's Supper improperly. So again, it's a matter of the church not doing what it was instructed to do.
And what could that do? That leads to others, right, taking it the wrong way. That leads to others going about in that same manner. Those that would be in that mindset that maybe they were taking it the right way, but they see that these other brethren are not, they could fall back into that carnality. They could fall back into that issue if that chastisement is not being done, these brethren not fixing it. All right here. This is the issue, that carnality of doing these things regarding these brethren. They're as a common meal, because they're hungry, in division. We are not to be of that. Right here. This is. We are to judge righteously. So when we judge righteously, we are to tell that brethren, no, right? We are to chastise them. Brother, don't take of this. You're not in that mindset. You need to just examine yourself and say that you are not ready to be taken upon this Lord, to this great momentous thing. Because, like I said, if others see that they're taking it and they're not taken seriously, it causes others to perhaps do the same. When that issue comes about, it's easy for these brethren who are from this idol worship to fall back on the things that they were used to doing. And that's the issue. If they don't take it the right way, if they don't have that mindset, and no one fixes it, this is the problem that creeps in. And we don't want that. And it can cause others to do so. So, very good. Very good. I didn't want to pick up into the next section until, yeah.
And note at the end of this chapter, and the remaining matters I shall arrange when I come.
Mm-hmm.
There were other matters concerning the Lord's Supper that he had to address, but the critical one was he took care of here of them not treating the Lord's Supper as a common meal. So there were other things that he had to correct also, but this was the foundation of the sin that they were committing. So take care of that, and then he could take care of the rest when he got there.
Exactly. Exactly. So this is the most critical, in my opinion, with them not doing this correctly, those other things probably would be, it would just add to this problem. So you want to make sure that they fix this problem here before you even came. Go ahead.
I guess, just to state the obvious, there's probably pretty good overall lesson here. All this is certainly and most importantly
Exactly. This is what I'm saying. How when it can become, like you say, uh, routine, but that's not how we should take it. Especially when you do something on a weekly basis. Go ahead.
Go ahead, you finish your thought.
Okay. Yes, it can become routine. Someone could easily just take upon this thing and do it so without examining themselves, without going into how deep and what type of momentous thing that they're doing. And that's why, like I said, when we come up here, when we talk, that is the mindset that we want each and every one to have, especially if they're taking of this great thing that the Lord has done for us. We are to commune with Him, and that's why we're taking it.
Something I thought about just being overseas a few times and being in worship, different settings, but we're still partaking more supper is other people that aren't Christians, they're watching too.
Right.
And so they're like wondering, well, what are you doing? What does that all mean? And so we can be influential if we're taking it right. We can be influential if we're taking it wrong.
Right.
And so that needs to be something we think about too when we're visiting someplace, you know, there's people that are watching.
Exactly.
And they're gonna see like, hey, I seen you at, at the bar or something. What are you doing here taking the Lord's Supper? So just be careful, David.
Right, exactly. Very good. All right, so we'll pick up on Wednesday with the remaining, so starting with question 9 into spiritual gifts. Daily Bible read.